More of your phone calls coming up. 877-3DP Show. It was a month ago when Bill Cowher was on the program, and he said that he expected the Steelers to have dialogue with Aaron Rodgers. Well, they probably had dialogue, and we're still waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Coach joins us on the program. What do you think the Steelers are going to do, and what do you think the Steelers should do at quarterback?
All right. Well, number one, they've done a very good job of keeping their playing their cards in-house and not sharing a lot of the conversations that they've had, I'm sure, when you think about it, Dan. So, I think right now there's really not a deadline. So I'm sure they're sitting back, weighing what their options are. I don't know exactly how much money has played into this. I think they wanted Justin Fields, is my speculation. Again, this is all speculation. I've talked to nobody within the building, but I think they wanted to go with a younger player to see if he could develop. I personally think that Russell Wilson is your best choice. It's the better. It's going to be a better offensive line room with Fontenot coming back and moving Broderick to left tackle. I think you're looking at the best receiving core you're going to have in a long time in terms of if they can keep George Pickens or not. That'll be the next conversation that you will have to have. Roman Wilson was a guy they were very counting on last year. Calvin Austin stepped up. So I think the offense in whole, and I think with Arthur Smith in the second year, in theory should take a step forward. So I think they're sitting back, and again, I think this is not unlike a Pittsburgh way of doing things, of seeing what their options are, not feeling pressed to make a decision based on the fact there's no deadline.
But also with Aaron at this age, how much should you factor age into this, the way he plays the position?
Well, I think the same as you factor Russell into it. I think that these are two players that who gives you the best chance to win this year, maybe next year, and then in the meantime, bridge yourself to the next quarterback, whoever that may be. I think back then to when we had Neil O'Donnell, who was a third-round pick, and we ended up having Cordell Stewart, who was a second-round pick. Both those players, as you sat there and you built your team, realize that, that was a position that, you had to have consistent play from. And I think that's what they need to get. Is it going to be a guy that's a franchise quarterback? Not everybody has one. But I think the biggest thing you have to do is build around it and not just sit there and wait on one position to say that that's going to be the fate of your football team. You think about the last 5 losses. This wasn't just on Russell Wilson. This was, you played 2 of the teams were in the Super Bowl. And then you lost 3 games to division teams, 2 to Baltimore and 1 to Cincinnati, and those are very much playoff caliber teams. And I think when you look at all 5 of them, you played against 5 really good quarterbacks, and the defense did not play up to snuff, to be quite honest with you. And certainly the offense didn't contribute. Didn't have your best players at the time. George Pickens was probably hurt near the end of the season, so you're a little handcuffed from that position standpoint, but. Again, I think you go back and as you sit back and reflect, I think, they had a chance to work with Justin, had a chance to work with Russell. You know who they are, and they know the system as well. You lost Justin. Russell's still out there. You have a chance to get Aaron Rodgers. And can he still throw it? Yes. Is he mobile enough? I think so. But does he really want to play? I mean, The longer you wait, you just have to wonder, where is his heart and how much does he really want to do? And I said, I just think when somebody starts talking about retirement, they've already checked the box. So they've checked out to some degree. And, so how much is he motivated to want to come here and be a part of trying to win a championship and then consequently bridging a bridge to the next guy? And maybe that next guy's Mason Rudolph, and he's sitting there right there underneath your nose. He played there before. Could he be a later Geno Smith? Could this be Sam Darnold, who all of a sudden they blossomed later in their career? So I think there's a lot that has to play out. I think signing Mason Rudolph made a lot of sense.
If you were still coaching, would you reach out to Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think I would have reached out to him from the very beginning. I'm sure that they did. Again,
you think Mike Tomlin reached out to him and just to gauge his interest?
100%. Okay. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think, again, from Aaron's standpoint, he's a guy that thinks through a lot of these things. This is where he's in his career. I do not think that if he decided to go wherever he goes, he'll be all in. That's just the way he is. I do think that there's a degree, and I said this to you last time I was on the show, I don't think he liked the way he exited. And you look how he played last year. He played all 17 games, determined to do so. But the 5 wins, that's just not who he wants to go out as being a quarterback of that kind of team. So I think he's motivated to play. And I think at the same time, where does he want to play? But those are conversations that you got to be convinced that that's where his heart is at. And I think that's the thing that you'd have to have is constant communication with him from that standpoint. And where's Russell in this whole thing? So I mean, that's the thing. Again, I go back to the same thing. You've worked with him for a year. A lot of good things were done. They weren't healthy at the end of the season. This is a much better receiving room core. DK Metcalf, you have a history with him. Again, the biggest question to me on that offensive side is what are you going to do with George Pickens? Is he going to be motivated to play in the last year of his contract? Are you going to extend him? Or is there going to be any degree of getting something for him from the standpoint of trade? So these are conversations that I think are having, but also there's no deadline to some of these conversations. The biggest deadline you're going to have right now is going to be the draft.
Talking to Bill Cowher, Hall of Famer, and now with the NFL Today on CBS. When it comes to quarterbacks, I always think, if I get together with you, I see your medicals, and I do an interview with you. But I got to look at game tape. Like, game tape has to factor in, a really high percentage. I think we get caught up in the combine, and we get caught up in pro days, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, did you fall in love with somebody at a pro day or the combine in going against maybe kind of that intuitiveness of that guy's my kind of football player?
Yeah, I think those are metrics that you're looking at that, whether there's speed, there's size, there's athleticism, the quarterback position, there's their accuracy, the ability to have anticipation and throw with anticipation, the ability, how much did you do in college and how much did you run the offense or how much leeway did you have? Can you set protections? Can you make audibles? These are things that, to me, when you start to work with a guy, you find out what his strengths are and what his liabilities may be, and what certain things that you just don't want to do with the guy. Ask him to do something he can't do. So, I think it takes working with someone sometimes. And again, how much does the comfort level of that quarterback? I go back. I think the one thing I've been very much impressed with is a guy like Kevin O'Connell. I think he can take a quarterback, he can sit in a room with them and realize exactly how much he can get out of this player. Where is this player comfortable? And that might be scaling something back, but it also may be an opportunity to open something up where they feel like let me see it, let me spread this out and see it, and I can process things there. So how quarterback processes information, how you deliver the information, the leeway you give him, what's his strengths, athleticism-wise, what's his strength, reads-wise, what's his better throws, is he more accurate on certain areas and certain throws? These are things that you have to work with someone on a regular basis, and you get a better feel for what they can and, more importantly, what they can't do.
Okay, but how much, I don't know if you were skeptical with Ben Roethlisberger, like what was the big concern you had with Roethlisberger when you drafted him?
Probably just the level of play. I watched him play. You don't play many big games. You're playing in the MAC. I get it. And there's, it's not bad competition, but it's not the NFL. And but when he did play in those big games, he did play well. And so when we got him, I just didn't think it was fair to a young quarterback to throw them in there right away, Dan. Because the game is faster. You're processing things more. It's more complex. It's a new system. I just think you want to make sure that quarterback is comfortable and that your football team is comfortable with that quarterback. So I don't want to set our team back by putting someone in there who wasn't ready to go in there. And at the same time, do I stunt his growth and development as a quarterback? So I do think there's a lot to be said for not even starting up now. He came in the third game of the season of his rookie year and started playing. But he didn't have that pressure in the preseason. He had that pressure in training camp. He was doing a lot of 1 minute, 2 minute, no huddle quarterback. Practices, and he was running in no huddle and doing the 1 minutes. And he played in the preseason, then limited time in the third and fourth quarter, maybe in a backup role. So the pressure of not being the week one starter was not on him. And so when he came in, we kind of tried to ease him into it in terms of we had a football team around him. And that's why I say before, I said, build it around him. We had a good offensive line. We had a running game. We had a pretty solid group of receivers. So it was just coming in and making sure that you ran and did your part in that offense. I didn't ask you to win games, but I'm asking you not to lose games. And that doesn't mean you're being risk adverse. It doesn't mean you're not taking chances and doing the things that allow him to do. And he did come in, he felt more comfortable out of the pocket and running around. And I used to call it playing street ball, where he made the game look very simple. It wasn't how we designed it. It's frustrating at times as a coach, but at the same time, we were winning games, and he was doing things that he felt comfortable. So you try to reel him in, but not too much, because you kind of let him do his thing because he was having success, but you knew it wasn't sustainable. So what you really try to do is just get him to grow, to develop, while he was very comfortable within this system that he thought was very simple. So you try to keep it simple and let it become more complex as he becomes more comfortable.
I think you gave us a story that Ben would act like he couldn't hear you.
Yeah, that's when he got too comfortable. So it's like let me just do this. I think my headphones are out. No, they're not. So let me get that helmet. I said, the helmet's fine. I go, oh, Ben, the helmet's fine. He goes, well, it just came back on. I go, yeah, it came back on. It's called selective hearing. Selective hearing. So yeah, we have it with our kids. He was like, I have like one of my kids. They have selective hearing.
Can you relate it all to Bill Belichick?
Yeah, I mean, well, as a football coach, for sure. I mean, I think that.
Like, did you ever think, like, I mean, that's a big change. Could you ever seen yourself, I don't think you coached in college as a head coach, but doing something like that, if NC State says, would you like to coach us? Could you see that even right now? I mean, you're younger than Belichick.
Yeah. No, I mean, the coaching landscape right now in college sports is just, I don't know. I always looked at college sports as being a purity of it's amateur element to it. You work your way to the professional element. It's a period of time. Only 1% of college players are going to play professional football, and everyone else is going to move on to their next stage in life. And so I thought it was the best 4 years of my life when I played in college. And you're tremendously impacted by your coaches, and I love that part of it. I remember going down when I stepped down, be able to talk to the NC State football team on spring practices, and just recognizing the kind of impact you have as a coach for those people. I remember, my coach, I had Lou Holtz my first year, Bo Ryan my next 3 years. Some of the players I played with, I still am in contact with today. And so, it's high school football, college football. I mean, that was pure, and it was a part of growing up. And at that point, then you have to be ready to move on to the next phase of life. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay into professional football, make it for 5 years, and get into coaching. And but coaching is still, it's in your blood. That's the only thing I'll say about Bill. Doesn't surprise me, because I do think he does love coaching the game of football. I think his core values of how he believes a game should be played, and the respect that he has for the game is something that will be a great benefit to the players that he ends up coaching. So I think that from that standpoint, as a football coach, he's tremendously insightful. I think he's very good at what he does, and he'll have great impact on those people. So I think that from that standpoint, it doesn't surprise me. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with them. And the whole college football scene, Dan, right now with the NIL, and they're hiring GMs now, as they're talking about positions of GMs in college football. It's almost like the wild, wild west. It just doesn't seem like there's any guardrails sometimes in terms of what they can and can't do.
How many times do you think you were out-coached in your career?
I think
does it happen? I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about coaches and Belichick being maybe the greatest coach of all time, but can you get out-coached?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're not prepared and you don't have the ability to have flexibility to make, alterations in terms of what you do in the course of a game, you got, you talk about in-house game adjustments. That's real. What's real is the fact is you can prepare all week for something.
Yeah.
And if I can show you something that you haven't prepared for, it's going to be your ability to be able to be a good teacher on the mend, and to be able to do some things on the sideline to make some adjustments, in-game adjustments. And so that, to me, is where at times, you may feel like you're a play caller or you're a defensive signal caller. sometimes you feel like you're just one play behind. They're a step ahead. You call something and they can beat you with it, or something, and you are ahead of them. You're dictating the pace of play. So I do think coaching is so impactful in a game, and in every game that you win or lose, you can go back to 3 or 4 plays that maybe you wish you had back, and 3 or 4 plays that you say, "Wow, it was a great call at the right time," or at times it's just the way the ball bounced. And so there are times when it's just you can take 1 or 2 plays, and it's a 50-50 ball that you didn't come down with. Is that being outcoached? I wouldn't say that is, but I think to a degree, I think every football game that you win and lose, there's a tremendous impact that coaching can have in that game in terms of what you do, and also then moving forward. And I do think that sometimes some of the greatest lessons you learn is you watch your football team, you think one thing going in, then you come out of it, is that ability to be able to stay a step ahead. All of a sudden not be a team that can be, oh, we know exactly what you're going to do every week. I'm always going to have the better players than you. So I got schematically be able to do something that can give my football team a competitive edge in how I coach them, in my decision making, in my ability to adapt and adjust and do some things differently because it's just not working. Not keep beating my head against the wall, thinking, okay, we're just going to keep doing it because that's who we are. Well, no, who we are should be someone that you're not sure who we are. If I can make sure you're not sure who we are, because we show a lot of different things, that to me is what great coaching is about, is to be able to stay a step ahead, to be creative in your thinking, open-minded in your thinking, and keep your players kind of excited about what's coming up next, because even they know that there's going to be something a little bit tweaking. We're going to tweak something about how we approach every game each week, making it all personal.
Is there a decision that you made that still haunts you?
You get 4th and 3 in the AFC Championship game, and you're at the 3-yard line, and it's like, that's your game. If you go score a touchdown, you go to the Super Bowl. If you don't, you go home. Well, we called the play, and a Neil O'Donnell pass that was batted down by Dennis Gibson that was intended for Barry Foster. So I guess I just gave you that play, so it was incomplete. Would I want that play back? Yeah, maybe I would want that play back.
Sorry about that, Coach. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. You had to bring it up. I just told you. There was a Neil O'Donnell, batted down by Dennis Gibson, and it was intended for Barry Foster. I thought it was a great play. I actually called the play.
Oh.
And it was the 1994 AFC Championship game against the San Diego Chargers. So, that was, ironically enough, the following year in the same end zone, AFC Championship game. Last play of the game was a Hail Mary from Jim Harbaugh into the end zone, and this one was batted down. So this was another incomplete pass in the end zone, but this time it was a good thing. So it was. I remember those 2 plays very vividly, and also the. Remember the play that the Ben Roethlisberger block and Antoine Randall to Hines Ward play. We practiced that for so long, and it was in the 4th quarter, and it kind of sealed the game. So you do remember particular plays that were very impactful in big games, and not always wins.
Are you glad you called in today?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you even asked me to come in. Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I know.
I didn't.
I like this conversation. This is great.
I didn't want to ruin your day where you're going to lunch and your wife's going, "What's wrong?" The Barry Foster throw, and
I know. You start. No, listen. I love the fact this time of year there's free agency going on. They're getting ready for the draft. And free agency really does impact the draft. Say what you want, but like a lot of things that happen between now and then, I go back to up until the very day of the draft, we traded for Jerome Bettis with the Rams, and consequently we didn't. We were going to take Eddie George if we didn't get Jerome Bettis. So. This time of year, it's funny because everybody's decisions, and you have like the musical chairs with the quarterbacks. He's got Russell, Aaron. You still have the Giants probably looking for one, but are they going to draft one? Is Kevin okay going into it with J.J. McCarthy and no other veterans? So you're kind of waiting to see what happens and how that unfolds. And so you wake up and you kind of check the news and see what any news is of the day, and we're still waiting on Aaron, and no one's sure if he's still on the beach walking up and down this morning to see what he wants to do. I don't know, but But it is like I said before. There's no timetable right now. I know we all got to get anxious about what's going on, what are we going to do here or there. But at the same time, I think you're getting ready for some of these pro days. You're getting ready for the draft, and I think right now you're getting a feel for what you want to do, and more importantly, where players' mindsets are.
Great to talk to you, Coach, as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. Anytime.
That's the Hall of Famer, Bill Cowher. We'll take a break. We're back after this.